The Husker Games schedule officially includes a media challenge. Why I may or may not be involved. Next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase.
All right. Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. It is the Locked On Nebraska podcast with Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, and I'm Connor Happer from 1620 The Zone. As Mitch mentioned there, got a little bit of a schedule of events, although there is still some mystery as to exactly how this is all going to look on Saturday for the the first annual Husker Games. The proceedings will start at 1:00. There's going to be a 7-on-7 women's flag football game between Midland and the UNL All-Stars. So they'll do that. Go ahead.
That's interesting. I think that's kind of interesting. I might not be there for it, but it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, Rhule's pretty passionate about the women's football thing, the women's 7-on-7 thing. So that's cool that they get their kind of stage before the spring game.
And I'll explain. I mean, that's no disrespect to them. Like I think it's great that they're doing it. I'll explain in a minute when we get to some more of this why I may or may not be there.
Okay, interesting. So then they'll have a specialist competition. The first thing right off the bat as they switch out and get players. Now they don't have any punters. I guess Camden Cook would be there.
Yep.
I assume Jack McAllister is staying for this, and
this is going to be his one shining moment.
Yeah, to thunderous applause would be my guess. As
I would hope.
Yeah, I would imagine that people would really, thank him for
12,000 people in Memorial Stadium are going to thunderously approve of Jack McAllister's great character that he showed in not raising a stink because Nebraska changed its style of punting 2 months after his arrival in Lincoln.
Right. Like, I think that's cool. And so I think he deserves that if and when he gets it. Okay. So then there is going to be, I'm looking at the schedule right now. The scrimmage will begin. They're going to do the scrimmage in 4 quarters, just interlaced throughout a whole bunch of various different events. So the first quarter of the scrimmage will happen, and then they'll break, and then they'll do a strongest man competition. I don't know what that means. Maybe they'll be throwing rocks and boulders around. I have no idea.
Like, can they chop down a tree?
Yeah, maybe. You remember I used to watch a World's Strongest Man competition a lot. It'd be on like on Saturday mornings or whatever, and they would pull like tractors and trucks and stuff like that. They'd strap them up and they'd pull them down the road.
There's limitations on what you can do inside Memorial Stadium. Maybe they can be like, they can put a live feed. We go live now to Branched Oak Lake.
Drive. Yeah.
And beam it into the stadium and have like well, I'm trying to think of offensive linemen who are not hurt. Like the first 2 guys that came into my, like, we got Gunnar Gatula. No, we got Henry Lutovsky. Wait, they're both hurt.
Yeah.
So you could get like Grant Bricks is out at Branched Oak Lake and he's gonna chop this log in half. Probably be in the stadium though.
You got options. And then so after that concludes, the second quarter of the scrimmage will be happening, and then the quarterback shootout, which will involve Nebraska's quarterbacks throwing footballs into various items or something like that, I imagine, or maybe into the stands. Who knows? Yeah. But you get the idea. Quarterback shootout.
That one's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, I think so. Then there's halftime of the games, which will include a John Cook roping roundup. Now, you just mentioned it, Mitch. We're going to be limited in what we can do here, but the John Cook roping roundup is fascinating to me.
Okay, pardon my ignorance, but when Cook ropes, I mean, and I've fallen on my face on this discussion before because it's the first time that we ever talked about John Cook's horses here on this show. Like, I think I stupidly said something like, "Oh, is he training? Is he getting a horse that he hopes can run in the Kentucky Derby someday?" It's not that kind of he's not
Right.
that kind of a horseman.
That's
He's a rodeo roping horseman, as I, have sat and talked to him about. So you rope, is it like
They'll rope.
casts?
I would assume that they'll rope. In this case, they'll rope like barrels or something like that.
Yeah, but like when you actually do it in a competitive way and level, and like the object that you're roping is moving, is it a small cow? Is that how it works? Like a cow?
I think that's one of the things. I'll have to talk to you. Weirdly, I know an expert on this. What a former co-host of mine is he works for something called the Cowboy Channel, and so I'll text him after this. I'll be like, "What is going on with what is roping? Please."
I don't think I don't think they're gonna have animals other than maybe John's horse out on the turf at Memorial Stadium.
I don't think so. But remember,
Maybe,
one of
though.
the ideas was to cut up the turf and have fans. Anyway, okay. So after the John Cook roping roundup at halftime, we've reached halftime. We're just now getting to the really interesting stuff. There'll be the scrimmage of the third quarter. As you might notice, the scrimmage, the football playing, is not the spotlight activity of these things, and I think it's that way by design. Then there'll be a skill showcase. I think your normal skill showcase stuff. They'll have them do some weird things, and skill showcase. Okay. Then before the fourth quarter, I would assume this will be during the spring game Husker Games light show. There will be something called a media challenge. Now, we have commented on this, the existence of the media challenge a few times. I regret to inform you that I have not been contacted about potential participation in this. That's not bad. I'm not available anyway, for the record, but I'm told that my co-host Mitch Sherman has. Prior to maybe this week, he has told us on this podcast that he would be rebuking any offers, depending on what it is. Where do you stand in the situation right now, Mitch?
All right, so an update on the situation. There were some conversations, some informal conversations that occurred last Thursday outside of media availability session at the Hawks Championship Center. I spoke with Keith Mann, the longtime Nebraska media relations director, and he informed me that yes, Nebraska was considering this, and what it sounded like is that they wanted some media members to catch punts on the field. And I was dismayed by this. First of all, it's not going to be good entertainment. Well, I don't know. Maybe it will. Maybe it will be good entertainment. From my perspective, it's not going to be great entertainment. The risk of injury, I'm pretty convinced I will not get injured. I'm not.
No, you're active.
I'm going to be fine. I'm not going to. Knock on wood. I'm not going to take it in the face. I will. If I'm wearing sunglasses, I will remove them. I'll take my watch off. Don't want any damage there. But I'm going to be okay. Probably going to drop it. Might whiff the punt entirely. There is the risk of like the punt hitting the ground and then bouncing up and hitting me in an uncomfortable area that I would not appreciate. If I have to move, and again, we'll get to whether I'm going to do this. But if I was in theory going to do this and I had to move, like say more than 5 yards to catch the punt, I think that could be problematic, just because here's the gist of it. I have never in my life caught a punt from a college punter. Not one time in my life. And even to say that I've caught a punt is probably a stretch, because have I caught a football that went up in the air that was kicked by someone? Yeah. Was that a long time ago? Yeah. So on Monday, the situation escalated right before Nebraska sent out the notice with the schedule on the spring game. I was in a conversation over email with Keith Mann about some other topics related, like to my job and his job that are taking place here today and over the next week. And in a reply to me, Keith said, quote, "That being said, media trying to catch a punt is still on the schedule. ... Are you in? Question mark." And my reply was, "Yeah, I'm fine with whatever on Saturday. Don't want to turn into a meme because I look stupid trying to do something I haven't attempted in 30 plus years.
Hey, Mitch,
But I'll be a good sport."
Neither do the people who turn into memes. They don't want to be memes. So that's the
Sometimes
whole
they don't
point.
have choices, though. Sometimes they don't have choices on what you don't have a choice if you become a meme. If like you're just
Exactly.
unsuspectingly caught on camera at a baseball game, like eating a 47-ounce hot dog or something.
If we're to understand how this really was birthed and all these things, and there's a couple more events that we'll talk about in a second, but if we're really to understand the origin points of this was driven or the idea was thrown out there somewhere, and
you know where it was thrown out from. You know who's behind this.
Okay, so but remember,
there's one person behind this.
Did you ever read the CBS Sports article where they FOIA'd all the? Did you see this?
No.
They FOIA'd.
Oh yeah, I did.
They FOIA'd all the ideas for what they were going to do on this day, and then they like sent it over
from
to
Brandon
Rhule.
Meyer. Brandon Meyer, the assistant AD, wears a lot of hats.
I feel horrible for them that all their emails got FOIA'd, but it was mildly entertaining. And so, and they sent it over to Rhule, and he picked the ones that he liked, and the media, the media activity, the media, whatever. It was not one of them that he liked, which was odd. Maybe it was just a clerical error. But I was going to say, this is all Matt Rhule. This is driven by one man and one force.
It is. And I think there have been some people around him who've maybe tried to nudge him in the direction of not doing this. Not me. Maybe. I haven't had any conversations with Matt Rhule about this, but for liability reasons or the reasons that I mentioned a minute ago about looking stupid. They should have the media. If they wanted to have us run stairs with the players, like with the offensive linemen, that'd be fun. I would do that, and I would look fine doing that. Now, we could call plays for one of the quarters. Like that's something that we do every Saturday. We sit in the press box and act like we're good at calling plays. They should have, that was a terrible play call. Why would they even think about running? We could call plays for a quarter. They could, and I wouldn't have to do it, but they could get a couple of media members in doing that. Catching a punt, who else out there? We need to take a break, but who else out there in all of these events, like not John Cook, not the strongest man, not the quarterbacks, who else out there in this is attempting to do something that they've never done?
That's the point. That's the point, Mitch. Sometimes you get thrown into situations, and we're going to see how you guys adapt. So this is great. I'm fired up for this. Now, one more quick thing, because people in the media, writers, podcasters, whatever, TV people, radio people, they have been pretty I don't know if I want to do this. That's all that I've heard from basically everybody. So I can't wait to see the roster. They're going to have to pull some people. I'm glad that they got I'm glad that you've agreed to this, because that shows that you got the stuff that it takes.
Have I agreed to it is the question, because I was a little snarky in my response, and I never heard anything back. He didn't. I said I would do it, but I wasn't real enthusiastic about it. And it's possible that they just said, pull the plug on Sherman. So if that's the case, I'm going to be a little disappointed now, because I've almost talked myself into wanting to do it, even though I'm probably going to look stupid.
They need numbers. They need numbers. And
there's plenty of people who would do it.
They're counting maybes as a yes. I would be my guess at this.
Probably learn more today. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll continue this discussion about the Husker Games, and we'll actually talk about some football that matters. That's coming up next. Right now, I want to tell you about GameTime, because there's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's the Husker Games, catching a punt, watching unequipped people catch punts, or catching a last-minute Major League Baseball showdown, or soaking in the action of an NBA matchup. But finding great seats at a great price, that's always been an issue. Until GameTime. GameTime makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices drop as the event gets closer. And with their all-in pricing, you see the total cost up front. There are no surprises at checkouts. You can save up to 60% buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever is on stage, whatever is live. Grab last-minute seats and save on their zone deals. With seat views before you buy, you have no surprise fees. All of it is great. And there's the lowest price guarantee. You can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, welcome back. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer. Tuesday edition of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. They could have us read, do ad reads between quarters. The media is adept at doing that.
Matt
right,
Rhule.
I'm going to get off my
Matt Rhule versus the media and ad reads. You know,
yeah,
that's where Matt Rhule has a chance to look bad.
Yeah, he'd be fine at that. If it involves talking, he'd be fine. Anything else? So before we move on, so the media challenge will take place with or without me after the third quarter. And if they don't pick me, you, the listeners of the Locked On Nebraska podcast, you know everything that happened. Like I have said that I would do it. I did not chicken out. I am willing. So we'll see. There's going to be a fastest man competition and a wing eating contest after the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Hey, we could have done the wing eating contest.
So when I saw the list of events and went all the way down the list, my eyes didn't really perk up until I saw the wing eating contest. Now it's not necessarily all that entertaining to watch. You know, just a bunch of big dudes eating chicken wings.
Mm-hmm.
But I am like that. The winner of that gets bragging rights for the rest of the year until the next wing eating contest at the next Husker Games. So that's a big deal for team and for camaraderie, things like that. So I'm excited to see who wins.
In the strongest man competition, that would seem to involve linemen, like unquestionably. I don't know about the wing eating contest. Do you have like a 170-pound receiver who can step up and take out someone who weighs twice as much as him? I think that's very possible.
Anybody who's ever claimed like, oh, I could eat more wings than you can, you know, which everybody has done that inside of a college football locker room. Like now we get to put it to the test. I'm sure this has been a conversation before. Like there's got to be people inside that locker room challenging each other on who could eat more food. And my guess would be like what you said. My guess would be like a little guy wins it, you know, like I don't know, maybe like Malcolm Hartzog or something like that. Like he ends up eating 40 wings or something like that.
He's like the Kobayashi of Nebraska football. I mean, not exactly. Competitive eaters are notoriously small people. Yeah.
Right. Joey Chestnut nowadays. And you know, the Kobayashi Joey Chestnut thing that really meta. All right. We don't have to talk about that.
We'll talk about it on the 4th of July. Who will not be in the wing eating contest? Dylan Raiola.
Well, that is a good call. That would you would be once again in danger of too many memes if you did that.
He will not be in the wing eating contest.
No. He will be at the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
There you go. Okay, let's talk about what's going on in Nebraska football this week, other than the release of the Husker Games schedule. This is not necessarily Nebraska football, but it's connected to Nebraska football. So the dominoes, Connor, are falling in the QB portal shuffle of 2025, with Nico Iamaleava officially in at UCLA. Former Appalachian State quarterback Joey Aguilar, who was projected just a week ago to start at UCLA, he transferred there 3 months ago, is now leaving UCLA for Tennessee, according to Bruce Feldman of The Athletic. That was a report last night.
Great. This is great.
Yes. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, this is awesome. We have our first college football trade, and this is coming off of our first college football holdout, which is awesome.
Mhm.
And it immediately parlays itself into the first college football trade that we have. And possibly even the better news for fans who are sitting at home, we have someone who's easy to root for in this. You're rooting for Joey Aguilar, who got unseated at quarterback at UCLA, for Nico Iamaleava, who, tried to force his way into getting $4 million from Tennessee, went into the portal, and then UCLA took him. And then he just trades spots with him. This is fantastic. If we get a UCLA Tennessee bowl game, it would, as the kids say, feed generations. It would be fantastic. And I'm rooting for Joey. I hope they make the playoff and Nico doesn't, because of how this has all turned out.
This is the new age college football quarterback competition. One quarterback transfers to another school in the spring, and then the quarterback at that school who had just transferred in a few months before leaves. They've never been on the field together. But Nico has, of course, won this competition over Joey, and Joey's going to take his old spot.
He won it without there wasn't any football involved.
Right. Exactly. A little side note to this: Nico Iamaleava, his brother, Madden Iamaleava, who was committed to UCLA for the better part of a year, and then enrolled at Arkansas in January, went into the portal, and he's going to UCLA to be with his brother. So nice. I heard that this is a buy one get one free kind of a deal for the Bruins. Yeah. Although Madden is no slouch. He was a 4-star quarterback, top 200 player last year. So probably there's some costs to get him as well. But it's kind of like the Riola deal. Not in the sense that you buy one, get one free. I'm not saying that. But like that you have an older brother at a school, and now the younger brother, who's 2 years younger, is coming to the school. This is what we will see at Nebraska later this year or early in 2026.
Yeah, I thought somebody was, when I saw that Madden Iamaleava existed, this was yesterday, I was like, whoa, this has to be fake. There's another page to this story. This is incredible. And it's going to use, I seriously thought that it was a burner that, like put a mustache on Nico Iamaleava or something like that. No, it's a real person, and they're both going to UCLA. The spring portal is reserved for, I don't know, like, I don't know the best way to put this or the best comp for it. Like, it's the spring portal is basically only like weirdos there's a whole bunch of weird stuff that goes on in the spring portal because everything else has already been figured out long before that. So it's like the tales of the bizarre for the portal. Yeah, just a bunch of strange situations in the spring portal.
UCLA, they're in Los Angeles, and the Bruins and Coach Deshaun Foster, they are truly at this point all in on the Iamaleavas. So interested to see where that goes, because I think some people wanted to make fun of UCLA last year because they're in LA, and turned out like they were not probably worthy of being made fun of, as Nebraska found out on a November Saturday in Lincoln. And the Huskers, as we've mentioned many times on this podcast, go to the Rose Bowl to play in November this year. And very excited to see when that game is played, if it's a Friday night, if it's a Saturday night. Probably not going to be a Friday early game, but that's all for us to discuss in May and June. One more segment that we have on this show, some news with the former Husker. Former Huskers are in some way involved in the Husker Games. I don't know if this former Husker is going to be involved. And we'll talk about what's on tap with Matt Rhule, Pat Stewart, and others this week in Lincoln.
But first, a word from our friends from Prize Picks, where baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you pick more or less on at least 2-player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, first inning runs, the Nerfies, that's what they call them. Prize Picks keeps every game exciting. So you look at the lineups and you look at the possibilities. It's a full slate of baseball today. You could pick, if you dare, a Kansas City Royal to hit a home run. If you dare. They only have like 11 of them on the entire season. But if you dare, you could go that direction, if you please, as they host the Colorado Rockies this evening.
There's the key. The Rockies. They're there for the taking.
Yep. And it's easy. It's fast. Setting a lineup takes less than 60 seconds. And when you win, your payout is quick and it's safe and it is secure. And you can take advantage of Taco Tuesday, where PrizePicks offers discounts on select player projections for even more value. Tuesday is today, by the way. So download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's with PrizePicks. Run your game. All right, welcome back. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you. Cam Jurgens yesterday became the richest man in Gage County, signing a 4-year, $68 million extension, and it has almost $40 million guaranteed. He was asked yesterday, Mitch, what he's going to do, his first major purchase, and he said he was going to purchase TSA PreCheck, which I believe costs $50 for 5 years. So I'm excited that he has the opportunity to do that now.
Yeah, 50 or 75. And if you have the right credit card, it's free. When I saw that, I was like, wait, does he mean that he's going to buy TSA PreCheck? Like he's going to
purchase the company?
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's a federal program. Are you
purchasing
a chunk of the government?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I thought at first, but then I remembered who we were talking about here. A minimalist, Cam Jurgens. This is like when Andy Janovich signed a big contract, the former fullback from Gretna here in Gretna, Nebraska, and with the Broncos, and he bought like a used truck or something like that.
Like a red pickup truck. Yeah.
Not new. It wasn't new.
No, it wasn't. Incredible stuff. So congratulations to him. And I know there was a lot of people who tweeted out that news yesterday. So you probably saw it, but Cam Jurgens is a great success story of a guy from the state of Nebraska.
Is he making more than Jason Kelce ever made with the Eagles now? His predecessor. I mean, salaries escalate, and you always got to make more than what somebody did a few years before. That'd be remarkable. I mean, Jason Kelce's making more than any football player with his podcast. But
that's true.
I don't know. Cam was back in Lincoln a few weeks ago, and I don't want to belabor this point and go too far down a rabbit hole with Cam Jurgens, but it was interesting for me to hear Donovan Riola, searching for the Riolas there. Donovan Riola, Nebraska's offensive line coach, when he last talked to the media, get asked about Cam Jurgens, and Donnie said, yeah, it's great to have Cam here. And I talked to Cam about maybe a message that he could share with our centers, to paraphrase what Riola said. And I thought, how far have we come? Because when Donovan Riola took over at Nebraska before Scott Frost's final season, this is when Cam had just decided to leave and forego his last year and go to the NFL, which turned out to be a smart decision.
Yeah.
And Riola at that time was asked, I think, about the disappointment of losing Cam Jurgens. And nope, he did not bite on that. Wanted nothing to do with it. It was like, you should at least acknowledge that Cam was here and was a good player. But no, Donnie didn't want to do that. And here we are 3 years later or whatever it is. And they are, they're on, they like each other. I like to see it.
Oh yeah. By the way, to answer your question, Jason Kelce in his entire playing career, this is just playing wise, made almost $82 million from the NFL. So Cam Jurgens is already cutting deep into that with his $60+ million extension, which is that's pretty good stuff. Elsewhere, a few things to keep an eye on for this week. Tuesday we'll hear from Matt Rhule one more time, coming off of a long, a lot of topics in the press conference last week. So another one for Matt Rhule today, and I assume he'll say something after the Husker games, just because he wants to probably get up there and rib the media for missing punts and stuff like that. But we'll hear from him today, and then Pat Stewart on Thursday, Nebraska's new general manager, and then there will be players on both days as well. So there's a lot to learn, I think, from from Stewart for sure, and I assume Rhule will be asked a lot about him and his role today.
Yeah, this is kind of what I was teasing yesterday when I mentioned that there was going to be a new speaker in the Nebraska media availabilities this week. And that'll be Thursday. As you mentioned, the GM, Pat Stewart, came to Nebraska from the New England Patriots. And the Huskers have kind of restructured the way they're doing things with evaluation and recruiting. So Stewart is at the top of that. I'm curious, Connor, about like the way that's broken down, like the way that Nebraska makes decisions, like who's got the final say in this.
Yeah.
You would assume it's Matt Rhule. He's the one who's got the biggest, the biggest investment in this program. But I don't know. Different colleges are doing it different ways. And obviously in the NFL, it works a certain way where in some cases the GM has the final say, or the GM is the authority, runs that department. Nebraska may not tell us exactly how it breaks down. I'm sure we're going to get, they'll say it's some sort of a collaboration, but you got to ask the question. And I hope we get some transparency on exactly like the way that Nebraska is approaching portal and high school recruiting with a full-fledged general manager in the offices.
Yeah, and I think it's a really fascinating time to talk to him too, because I mean, there's been this ongoing conversation about the positions and how they're valued, and I mean, Nebraska's taken a clear, they've taken a clear approach, I suppose, at running back, which leads us into our next topic, where Marty Brown, the freshman All-American from North Dakota State a year ago and originally out of Creighton Prep. He's going to be visiting Miami earlier this week, and he's going to be visiting Nebraska after that, assuming there's not a commitment to Miami before he leaves Miami, which is possible. So Pat, to wind Pat Stewart back into this, how does Nebraska, allocate the money for running backs? How does it value that position? Because you kind of, Rhule talked about this, right? It's, what's the list? Is it quarterbacks, offensive line, defensive line, and wide receivers, corners, and then every other position is sort of a little bit lower down the food chain. And then if that's the case, how much money can you afford to be throwing out there for an extra running back that you're going for out of the transfer portal? I mean, I think those conversations are sort of interlocked.
Yeah. Is there some kind of like symbolism here that Pat Stewart is talking to the media on the day that Marty Brown visits Nebraska, and also on the day of the NFL draft's first round? Like, there's you have this connection over here with what Stewart can do in leading Nebraska's efforts to best make use of the portal to bolster its roster. And then on the other side of it, you have the NFL world, which is the biggest day of the NFL offseason on Thursday. And we know where Pat Stewart came from. He came from that world. And so he can be an asset for Nebraska in having another connection to that world. Make no mistake, players from the portal, even players from high school, part of the reason that they pick a school, and part of the reason that Nebraska wants to is trying to make itself attractive to those players, is because of the connection, the ties that it has to the NFL world. And Pat Stewart is now a big part of that. Yeah.
Fascinating. So a lot to pick at still this week, and then it'll all culminate in Mitch trying to catch punts on the Memorial Stadium turf on Saturday. So a big week ahead.
Do I dress differently than I would for covering a normal spring scrimmage?
No, I think you play the part. Like I think you play the part of the media guy, and so
don't go out there in sweats.
It'd be even funnier if you were if you were even more dressed up than what you normally would have been.
I'll tell you what I normally would wear to a spring scrimmage is probably, if the weather's over 75 degrees, it's going to be like khaki shorts and a polo.
Mm-hmm. Wear a button down.
Yeah. Wear a tie. Be old school.
Hilarious.
No, never worn a tie to a game.
Right.
It's probably never going to happen.
We're following this story. We're following this story throughout the remainder of the week, and I'm excited to do so. Appreciate you making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. For a second listen, check out Locked On NFL Draft, which is coming to its culmination as well. Damian and Keith have you covered there. As your favorite college players get ready for the next level, you can get the latest news and updates on the NFL Draft side. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.